This is how we start. This is the Cowboys. We're trying to do something. Really, it's time. So we the football team. It's time. It's your time. It's time.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
He was a Giant, and he was a Cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. And now, here's Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to J&B Talking Shop, where I get the honor and privilege to sit in with two of the former NFL stars, two-time Super Bowl champion Jim Jeffcoat of the Dallas Cowboys and former New York Giants star wide receiver Byron Williams. How we doing tonight, guys?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Excited about the show. Excited about, getting ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was going to say week 8 was a big week in the NFL. A lot of moving parts and even more moving parts. You know, the trade deadline was yesterday, so some key things happened in the NFL. So really exciting times in the National Football League.
That's excellent, guys. Yeah.
Good football on the field, too. I mean, it was some really good football. Some unfortunate things happened that we'll talk about as the show progresses.
So, guys, let's get right to it. The Patriots. They make probably a big statement against the Chargers, right? Everybody's saying, well, we'll see what happens with New England this year. You know, they got a young quarterback, and, you know, we don't know if Belichick can get him back together or not. Well, they go and they beat the Chargers and Herbert again, the second time, I think, in 2 years. Defense plays really well. The offense plays pretty well. What do you guys think? Do you think the Patriots have a shot at maybe hitting the playoffs this year?
Go ahead, Byron.
Yeah, I do. I think the Patriots are going to be just because of Belichick and the things he do and the way the defense played yesterday. You know, they scored a touchdown and made things happen, and they playing good physical football. And Matt Jones is playing really well. So he hadn't made a whole lot of mistakes. He learned the offense, and the Patriots look really, really good.
Well, I think Byron mentioned this on previous shows about what Belichick's philosophy is. Have a strong running game, and then play good defense and not put yourself in positions to make mistakes. And that's what New England is doing. They played the Cowboys tough, and we all know the Cowboys are 6-1, but they played them tough.
Thanks for putting that in there, Jim. Thanks for letting us know that.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, but no, they are getting better. We talk about teams getting better as the season progresses, and they're one of them. They're one of the teams that seem to be getting better, and if they can continue that upward trend, they definitely have a chance to be in the playoffs.
So does that make you guys think? I mean, we all talked about Herbert had a great year last year, and you know he's the newest. Everybody said, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's this, he's that. Do you think that maybe we overrated Herbert just a little bit, a little too early? Maybe we got to give him another couple of years. I mean, they were thinking, the Chargers may go to Super Bowl this year, and they were pointing to Herbert because of that. He's a young quarterback. It's only his second year, guys, right?
Yeah. I think they 4-3. They're still in the playoff hunt, and I don't think you get down because of this one game. I think they've been in every game, and they got some explosive offense and defensive players on that team. And Justin Hubbard, man, he just threw the ball over Cook's head on that one time where they intercepted the ball. But I think every now and then, you're going to make a mistake or two out there on the football field. But, they're playing with a lot of confidence. And I think, too, they're still going to be a contender.
I think what's happening with them is health reasons. They've had some injuries in their secondary, and they've had some injuries in key positions. And I think that's the big thing. To make a run in the NFL, especially as the season progresses, is you got to stay healthy, because the teams that stay healthy are making a perfect example. I know the Giants lost Sterling Shepard, but for the most part, a lot of these guys are coming back, and those things happen, especially with a 17-game season. You got to have some help. You got to have some luck obviously, and you got to make sure that there's going to be a difference between your backup and your starter because of salary cap reasons. And these things have to help you, the backup, but he's not going to probably be as talented as the guy he replaced.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very true. I mean, a lot of teams, I don't think we put enough emphasis on luck too. I mean, look, if you look at all professional football teams, and yeah, they're at different levels, and yeah, there are better teams than others, but basically, they're all professional athletes. The coaching staffs may have a problem getting that talent out and may have a problem putting a scheme together, but they're all getting paid to do one thing, and that's because they're the best in the country. And I don't think we put enough emphasis on luck, right, guys? I mean, to be the right place, right time, not injured, raining, not raining, fumble, no fumble. I mean,
No question.
yeah, I mean, luck has a lot to do with it. You could be on the wrong side of it and lose a game and be on the right side of it and, of course, win the game. That's how close the teams can really be. So, let's talk a little bit about the Saints and Bucks. Now, the New Orleans Saints, they go to a barely known quarterback that didn't really play at all, and they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the third time in fourth tries, guys. The only game they lost to them was the championship, and they almost beat the Patriots and almost ended up going to the Super Bowl themselves last year. A lot of people don't realize that. So here they go. No-name quarterback. Does Sean Payton just have the Bucs number? I mean, does he know that he's going to beat the Bucs no matter who plays?
Yeah, but I think too, you got to give credit to their defense. Their defense played lights out. I think Sean Payton just need a quarterback that don't go in there and don't make no mistakes, don't throw the ball away, don't throw interceptions. And their quarterback came in and did a great job. He guided them up and down the field. So I think it's something to do with the philosophy of the style of play that the Saints have. It's really working. The week before that, they went and played a hard game up in Seattle and beat them 13-10. So, they've been in their game. So all they need is a good general to manage the flow of their offense. And their defense, man, they are moving around that ball and really playing some exciting football.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Jameson Winston, everybody criticized him, but he was having his best year as a pro. If you look at his percentages and his everything and where he was rated as a quarterback, he was having his best year. Now, with Jameson out, they do have the young man who started last week, who will probably be but Taysom Hill is coming back too. He's coming back next week, so they have another option. And unfortunately, they lost the receiver for the year. So that's
Michael Thomas.
Yeah, and they unfortunately lost him. But I think anytime you got a dynamic player like Kamara, then you got a chance. I think that's it. And just like you mentioned and Mac mentioned, if you can stay away from the mistakes, and their defense is good enough to keep them in games, and they can stay away from the mistakes. And, I mean, this is the first time that I've seen Tom Brady in 2 years look old. And if you looked at him even in the post-game interviews, he looked old then. He looked like he was old, and that's the thing. And that's not saying that he's not the GOAT or he's not one of the all-time best. He just looked old and tired. And it's a long season, guys.
A long season.
You know that. It takes a grind on you.
No doubt. So, surprise, surprise, the New York Jets beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, and to remind everybody, we will have Gary Reason's former great middle linebacker for the Giants coming up later in the show. So stick around for them to get in an interview with us at about the halfway point. He'll be coming in. So the great Gary Reasons will be joining us. As I was saying, surprise, Mr. Surprise, the New York Jets beat the Cincinnati Bengals without their number one draft pick. Zach Wilson's out. In steps a guy named White who's throwing, running, catching the football. The Jets, after the Bengals whooped the Ravens, come out and they beat the Bengals pretty well. I mean, they played a heck of a game against the Bengals. So what do you guys think? I mean, Are the Jets, first of all, two questions for you. Are the Jets going to start getting better and better as the year goes on? And if that's so, and White is a quarterback, is there now a quarterback controversy in New York?
Well, it's not a quarterback controversy. I think White came in and had a great game. I think what happened was Cincinnati Bengals took them lightly. And I just think, too, you get to the point where you're comfortable with your style of play, because the week before they had so much success against the Steelers or whoever they played. But no, I just think, Wilson is the quarterback there. Anytime you spend that much money, you got to continue to build your team around Zach Wilson. And, of course, it's a professional league, and you just think go in with every game being serious. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals just thought they were going to go in there and walk all over the New York Jets, and New York Jets played some good physical football.
What do you
I
think?
think what happened. Well, what I think actually happened is Bill Parcells would do this when I was coaching for him. He put all these traps, and Byron probably remember these mouse traps. And the reason he did that was that don't take the cheese. People are going to tell you, the media, and people are going to tell you how great you are. But that game's over. Let's focus on the game at hand. And I think Cincinnati took the cheese because they beat a Baltimore team, and everybody was telling them how great they are and that they're going to the playoffs, and maybe they're going deep in the playoffs. You stop Lamar Jackson and things like that, and they believed it instead of getting prepared for the next game. And the Jets were the next game. So they need to emphasize on the game, not what's happening tomorrow or yesterday, what's happening today. And that's what happened to them. On the quarterback situation, I think Zach is their future. I think he's going to be the guy. Right now, White did a really good job of coming in, and he might win some more games. Who knows? But it's Wilson's team. It's his team, and there's no question.
Well, let me ask you. You guys were in the locker rooms, right? And prime example, right? We've talked about it before. A lot of people have talked about it, right? You have Drew Bledsoe, great quarterback, won the Super Bowl, one of the biggest arms in the league, gets hurt. Guy named Tom Brady comes in. They don't give Drew Bledsoe the team back. And then you go to Seattle, and, of course, Tom Brady's one of the greatest ever to play. Seattle, a guy named Russell Wilson was like, a fourth-round draft choice. Started competing right away. They gave him the ball. They didn't go with their first choice, and now he's almost a legend. So all I'm saying, guys, is if White is in the game, and say he goes the next 4 games, say Zach Wilson doesn't play for 4 games, and he wins 3 out of 4 as a quarterback for the Jets, you're still going to pull him?
Well, here's the thing. I am so mad because they better in New Jersey bet $1,000 that all the first-time starting quarterbacks, White would have the most yardage. He had 405 yards. He made $125,000. I just knew White was going to do that, and I didn't bet on him.
I still say that, you spent all this money on your second pick on the last draft. Zach Wilson is proven he was rated real high. You got to continue to build your team around Zach.
No question.
I know. Sometimes you can see some quarterback like Tom Brady, but when you're a first or second selection pick in the NFL, it's your team and it's yours to lose. And so Zach gonna get every opportunity as soon as he get healthy to come back and win that job. And everything is built around Zach right now. And so I'm just glad that Mike White came in and did a tremendous job, and it bring up his value. And so it's good to see second-string quarterbacks that have success in the National Football League, because thus far hadn't had too many successful stories to talk about. And Cooper Rush had a good game. He was he's the backup for the Cowboys.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's good to see that these guys saying, "Hey, I belong to be playing in this league," and I'm happy for these guys because they don't never get the media. Their parents be going to the game, they never see them play. So it's good for them and their family to see some success, with the second string quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Very true.
And here's the problem, too, as you look at it, is that in preparation, they don't have a lot of film on White. I know that he was a journeyman. He played for the Cowboys. He played for Carolina. But there's not a lot of film on him. So you don't know what his strengths and weaknesses are. Now people are going to start studying him. and it's going to make it different. What does he do well? What doesn't he do well? How do we defend him? And they're going
But I want to say this too: a lot of the players kind of knew that what his capabilities and abilities are because of his practice, what he'd been doing in practice. And you can see that a lot of his teammates were real happy and patting him on the back and everything. It was exciting because he'd been making plays like that in practice too. So that's a reminder that this guy, he deserved the accolades and things that he have achieved this past weekend.
Yeah, and the thing is that his players knew it, but the Cincinnati players didn't. So that's
very true. The one thing I want to tell you guys, though, and you know it's true, if Zach Wilson, when he comes back and he loses that game or he throws a few interceptions, guess what's going to happen with all the fans there in New York? They're going to be screaming for White, and you know it's going to happen.
No question.
So the Rams make a huge move. They put all their chips in the middle of the table, right? We're going to go get Von Miller. We're going to get another pass rusher. We're going for the Super Bowl. That's what it says to me. Is that what it says to you guys?
That's what it says to me. They said immediately, we want to position ourselves like Tampa did last year and host the Super Bowl. They're going to be out there in L.A., and they positioned themselves and said, we can get this very impactful player in Von Miller. They grew up here in Dallas, and they're going to change the dynamic of their whole defense. It's going to add more value to the defense. So they definitely put the whole pot in the game plan of getting the player that they want, that they think will fit their style of play, and their defense just going to get better.
No question about his ability. Von is a tremendous pass rusher, but I question he hasn't practiced yet because of health reasons. So I question it's not COVID. It's more the injury he got against Cleveland. So he missed the last game that Denver had, and now he hasn't practiced at the Rams. And eventually, depending on the injury, he should be back, and he will make an impact for him. It's like when Denver got DeMarcus Ware. Yeah, that's a similar situation where you got a unique and a big-time pass rusher. You can't never have enough pass rushers. That's the thing that you learn as a coach and as a player. You need as many pass rushers because it's a difficult position and it takes a lot of energy to do it.
Yeah, and he's one of the best over the past few years, past decade. He's been around for a while, right? So, I mean,
you got Aaron Donald inside and you got Von Miller on the edge. Woo, man.
Yeah, that Ram defense has just gotten a little bit better especially when he starts playing, if that's possible. So let's turn to the NFC East real quick, where both the Giants and Dallas, of course, that's where they've been playing for a long time. And the happiest guy in sports right now is the Philly sports guy, Pags. The Eagles not only beat Detroit, but they opened a can of you-know-what on them, and they ended up beating them 44-6, and the Detroit Lions were outclassed from the beginning. And the Eagles were definitely not going to take the Detroit Lions for granted. I'll tell you that, guys.
Yeah, they ran the ball really, really well. They done some stuff on offense that was exciting. They played error-free football as well. And, it's good to see the Eagles win a game that they're supposed to win. And I know the Eagles fans was happy about that. But, they'll come back down to reality here pretty soon. Everybody beating up on Detroit, so it's nothing to brag about, I think.
What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. They did run 4 touchdowns. They had 4 touchdowns that they scored on the ground, which Pags was always arguing about. They wouldn't run the ball, and they did this week. And like you guys said, they weren't going to take the Detroit lightly. And maybe we overestimated because Detroit has been in the majority of games they have. But maybe people are taking them lightly and just trying to get through the game. And Philly said, we need this win.
We need to win.
And obviously they did, and they did a good job. And you got to commend them on that because they did a good job of getting the job done. And that was probably the best game of the year. And like Byron said, now, obviously, I don't know how many people on their schedule are going to be like Detroit.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So, let's get to Washington. Listen, the most confusing team, one of the most confusing teams to me this year anyway. Last year, they looked at least competitive and decent. Their defensive line, I mean, they were one of the best in the league. Looked like it was a new San Francisco 49er defensive line of a couple of years ago. We knew they were going to have a little problem with Fitzpatrick at quarterback. But listen, I mean, what's going on out there? There's no offense. There's no defense. The coach is not fighting cancer this year. You would think, like he did last year, you would think that the team would improve, right?
Yeah, right. I thought they could go up there and give Denver a good game. They lost 17-10, and of course, their offense hadn't been too productive. I mean, the week before that, they couldn't score inside the 5-10 yard line. They was inside the 5 or 10 yard line 4 or 5 times the week before. And so to me, it seemed like you want to try to build up some type of momentum and make the correction and then go into Denver and put it on them. But they offense is not even subpar right now. And so I don't know who their leaders are, but the expectation before the season started that their defense is going to be a shutdown type defense and awesome. They're going to be the part of the team that could keep them in the thick of things when they're talking about game time. And right now, that we hadn't seen that for the Washington team at all.
Well, first of all, what I think is what happened was they're playing a first place schedule, and they probably weren't good enough to play at first place at this time. Then they're starting to get injuries. They lost their center for the year. Montez Sweat is going to be out for the year. Not for that year, but for a month with a dislocated jaw. And they're starting to, those injuries are mounting up. And just like you said, there's not a lot of leadership. The quarterback plays hard, Heineke, but he is not the answer. I keep telling you, he's not the answer. He is a try-hard guy, and that's not anything wrong with that. But at a quarterback, you have to have something dynamic about you to help your team win. And you're like you said, they don't have enough playmakers on offense to offset that. If you had just like what happened with Dallas, you got, I mean, you saw it. Amari, CeeDee Lamb, and now Wilson. I mean, Cedric Wilson. Now you got enough playmakers, and then you got Zeke, and you got guys in the backfield. Well, Washington doesn't have that. They don't have those guys that scare people. And that's the thing. They got away with it last year because the NFC East was so bad. But this year, it's catching up with them because they don't have that dynamic player that can take over games. And we thought it was on offense. On defense, they had that player with Young, but it's proven no. He can't take over games yet. At some point, he will be able to take over games. But who do they have on offense that can do that?
Yeah, and being a second-year player, Chase was a defensive rookie of the year and all that, and all those accolades. But so far, he's just been having an average year, and so you got to be consistent once you play in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to be having at least 5 or 6 sacks, blah blah blah, and he's not quite there yet because people sometimes you getting double teamed too. Because they know the strength of your defense. But yet, Washington, they got to go and do some evaluation and say, hey, we got to do this and do that to make sure that we can play and be competitive. And they should be winning some more games than they have it. They have it.
So, as I said, folks, we got the great Gary Reasons, who will be coming. In fact, he just popped in down into the studio right now. A little quick thing about Gary Reasons, in my opinion. You guys know I'm a lifelong Giant fan, the people that know me. I've been following the Giants since the days of Fran Tarkenton and Joe Morris and Spider Lockhart. And there's some very underrated players that are on great teams. And the Giants had a historically great linebacking crew. And believe it or not, this man was the heart and soul of that defensive Big Blue Wrecking Crew. And we're going to bring him up right now, the great middle linebacker from the New York Giants, Gary Reasons. How you doing today, Gary?
I'm good, guys. Hey, good evening.
Good evening, Gary. So, of course, you're
kind of worried now. I got all these Giant fans and Giant players around me. What's going on? Today.
Show a little love to Big Blue. There you go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Gary, before I give you to Byron and Jim for their questions, I got one for you. Now, the Big Blue Wrecking Crew, of course, had probably, and not because I'm a fan, I follow football for a long time, but probably historically, you could argue the greatest linebacker crew in the history of football, between Harry Carson, Lawrence Taylor Banks, and of course you. I mean, when they talk about the Big Blue Wrecking Crew linebacking core, they talk about Carson, of course, Hall of Famer, great player, LT dynamic, Carl Banks even, but they seem to leave you out of it. And when I watch the games of you playing, you've made some of the biggest plays during the championship runs. The big hit against the Broncos, the fake punt against the 49ers. And I mean, you were like the run stopper. You would stop the run dead in its tracks while Carson and Taylor and Banks were doing their thing. But if you were going to run against the Giants, you had to block you, and that was almost impossible to do, Gary.
Well, I appreciate you recognizing that. It was a fun time to play with those guys, and all of them were tremendous guys and players in their own right, and they brought a lot to the table. You know, and Byron will tell you, we had a group of guys that just loved to play football together, and we grew together as a team. And it started in '84 when I came in there with the Giants and my draft class, and Carl Banks was one of those. And we started an ascension there for the Giants, and we created a level of excellence that seemed to be, kind of our calling when you started to play the New York Football Giants. You knew you're going to get your butt kicked. First of all, it's going to be a hard game, and if you found a way to defeat the defense, you could win the football game. But we had an ability to kind of stop everybody, both running and passing the ball. So it was a fun time.
Yeah, hey Gary, I want you to. One of my most memorable moments with Parcells was when I left my playbook in the hotel room, and I had to get his car and go get my playbook, and he probably tried to run me to death after that. But what is one of your most memorable moments playing for Coach Bill Parcells?
It was a love-hate relationship, Byron, as you know, and for all of us, it wasn't. He didn't single anybody else out, but Bill was tough. He was hard on us. He was a hard-ass coach. There's no doubt about that. And the unique thing about Bill is that he knew a little bit about everybody, so he could talk to everybody. I don't care who it was. I'd come into the locker room any time of the day, and he's sitting down next to somebody, and every day was different. And he made his way through the locker room, and he endeared himself to us, but he also demanded more of us, and he got the most out of us. And so by knowing a little bit about each one of us, our backgrounds, he could kind of pick at each one of us a little bit differently. And he certainly was able to do that. He's a people guy, a New Jersey guy, and he had his little shtick about him. And I really admired him for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So me and you are from Texas. I want this to be known. And Jim is from New Jersey. So we flipped the script.
How did that happen, Jim?
Cowboys had good sense to draft me number one. That's what happened. But
well, the Giants always love Texas boys, so we know that they were going to come out down here and get us.
I got after the Giants pretty good, but no, you're right.
I grew up a Cowboys fan and loved the Dallas Cowboys, and they had opportunity to draft me. They took Diassi in the round following me that year, but regardless, it didn't happen, and it worked out pretty well. Got a couple of championship rings, and Jim, you guys followed up right after that.
So I understand that. What I was going to ask you is that the opportunity to play in Super Bowls, how did that affect you, and what is your greatest memories about the Super Bowl?
For me, to play in Super Bowls was really the team aspect of it, and being able to grow together as a team, and really just still having that camaraderie today. Our teams were pretty solid, and the people, the players, coaches. There are events that we've had over the years where our Super Bowl championship teams have gotten together, and it's really kind of kept us all pretty close. And I think that's pretty cool. Some of my memories, that are great for me personally is, when you look at the big picture of how many people play high school, college, and the NFL, it's a tough thing to get in there and to be a part of a team, a championship team, and and win a couple of Super Bowls. It was amazing. So, when I look back at being introduced to play as a starting linebacker in 1987 in Pasadena in our first Super Bowl, and being introduced to billions of people across the world, that's an awe-inspiring moment. And I look back on that fondly, and we took care of business that day to get our championship. So, that was one of the memories that I'll cherish forever.
And that's true.
Hey, a lot of people don't know this, but Gary, our linebackers could really catch. I mean, you had great hands, had 10 interceptions, and I know that Lawrence Taylor could do everything, and Carr could do it all. So you guys were a great group. So tell us how you learned how to catch like that. I mean, Carr had Gary had almost 700 tackles as a linebacker, and then he had 10 interceptions.
Yeah, I was an all-state tight end in high school. So Byron, when I went to college, I was being recruited as both a linebacker or a tight end. And so when I went to Northwestern State, I went to Northwestern in Louisiana. They didn't know whether they're going to play me at tight end or linebacker. So when I was in camp, I was blocking punts and doing things defensively. And these coaches, they said, this guy just keeps showing up. And next thing you know, my career takes off there, and it turned out pretty well at the end of it. But I've always had good hands, and Byron, you'll remember this. Coach Pope, Mike Pope, who's a great tight ends coach, and you know him as well, Jim, with the Cowboys for a long time. He worked with our tight ends, and so I was the smartest guy around that group, and here's why: because I would be the catcher for Mike Pope when they threw the ball back to him, and there were. So I caught 3 times as many balls in preparation in practice as those tight ends. So I play smarter instead of harder, and that kind of helped me out. But I never dropped a ball in the NFL that was hitting my hands as a potential interception. And I had, a ton of fumble recoveries as well. I was one of those guys that was always around the football, and that was kind of my calling.
That's really good to know. But I have a question for you. We've been having an argument the last couple of weeks, and Byron says that crossing the middle is tougher than being on the bottom of the pile. And we have to know, what do you think? What is tougher, being crossing the middle as a receiver or being a defensive player on the bottom of those piles? And say it could be a fumble, since you recovered quite a few fumbles.
Yeah. For me out in space, these rules, wouldn't be favorable for a guy like me, because I like to clean some clocks out there. But in those piles, Jim, things you're talking about, in the scrum, so to speak, some unique things happen, as you well know, and that it's good to come away with the ball every now and then, and make sure that you have, excuse me, no pun intended here, yours intact. So regardless, I'll just leave it at that.
Oh God,
Byron doesn't understand those kind of things. Those receivers, they get a little broken jaw, and they
hey, B was hey, he was our go-to. He could fly. Byron was one of the guys that could stretch the friggin' field, and he could take off and go. So that was his calling. He had that long stride. Yeah.
He did it.
Yeah, so
hey, thank you for telling Jim that, because he didn't know he had a 67-yard touchdown, and he always bragged about how fast he was and things like that.
Well, he's fast for a big man, Byron, not for a guy like you. So I mean, when you guys played against the offense during practice, and you guys practice a lot more different than they do today, of course, Gary. I mean,
sure.
That had to make the offense a lot better, because the offensive line of the Giants was not the biggest and strongest, but it sure worked together well as a unit. I mean, they could really open some holes for Joe and later for OJ, and they don't get a lot of credit either. But I imagine they have to be good going against a defense like you guys had.
And we practiced hard. You're right. We did. We were hard practiced. Wednesdays was either full practice, full gear with Parcells most of the time. That was our normal. We didn't go head and shoulder pads or just helmets. we went full friggin' gear, and we would then, continue that. Sometimes he'd let us off on Fridays to get helmet and shoulder pads, but it wasn't often. And so when we practiced, it was heavy thump. I mean, heavy thump. And I like that style of play because I think today's players lose a little bit of the ability to tackle in space because they just don't have that continual repetition of doing things. I think we've lost a little bit of that. So that's why we see so many missed tackles, is my opinion about today's players. And I see at the collegiate level in my broadcast work. So I'm around the game tremendously, and it's I don't see this changing. I think there's a lot of missed tackles out there defensively because of the spread style of offense that you see in having players out in space.
I totally agree with you. Because that is, you have to tackle to learn to tackle. That doesn't mean you have to take them down, but you have to learn to use the techniques properly. And what's happening these days, just like you said, the offenses are spreading out, and you get people in space and they don't know how to tackle. So that's difficult. You have to have more than one player there, obviously, to make the tackles now because of the talent of these receivers. But I agree with you 100%. The tackling is a lot different from when we practiced it. Wednesdays was full gear and full go, just like you said. And those things, and now you very rarely see players in pads at all during the week.
Jim, we had full live goal line practice and red zone practice against our number one offense often. Yeah. And what does that do for your football team? It helps the defense. It helps the offense. It makes you more physically stout, so to speak. But also, it puts a little emphasis on that part of the game and the part of the field which is most critical in today's game. So, or any era. And so I love our style of play back then. I do miss it a little bit but today's game is pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, hey, Gary, I was just going to ask you to talk about Bill Belichick, you and his relationship early on when he was our defensive coordinator with the Giants, and talk a little bit about that.
Bill was a guy who was a young coach, and he first was a special teams coach in the NFL. Bill Parcells hired him, got him on his staff, and the thing that I think that Parcells saw in Belichick is a guy who was going to work his ass off. And Belichick really did. He put in the time. He put in those 16-hour days. He crunched that film, and he could find something on the tape that could put us in a position as players to be, more successful on the field, whether it's special teams and certainly on defense. He gave us game plans to where if we executed, and we did, then we were going to be successful. And that's the thing, my biggest takeaway, preparedness, and that's what Bill Belichick preached to us, being prepared to play and prepare to succeed and prepare to win, and take away the different aspects of the game that we're trying to take away from a particular team and let them try to come through us and play our style of football, which didn't bode too well back then for a lot of teams.
Exactly. True.
Yeah.
That's true. So Gary, I mean, in '86, you guys beat Denver, come back in the second half and toast them. Then you go and play in '90, a totally different year. Sims gets hurt. Hostetler becomes the quarterback. You really have to rely a lot on the defense. 1990, of course, you had that fake punt in the championship, and San Francisco seemed like the Giants in San Francisco were always going at it back then. Not to mention the teams in the East, of course, but always the 49ers and the Giants. And when you went to that Super Bowl, I mean, you were going up against a very explosive, probably the best Buffalo Bills Super Bowl team there was in those 4 times they went. When Jim Kelly was younger, Thurman, he was at his peak and everything. And you guys pretty much shut them down until the end of the game. I mean, do you consider the 86 defense or the 90 defense, and I know it's hard to say, which one would you think played a more important role, the 86 or 90?
I think our 1986 team was a lot more dominant overall. I think we had, on offense and defense, I think we had a little bit better squad. 90, it wasn't quite as good, but we were really damn good then too. But just to be honest, I think our '86 team was probably great. And unfortunately, we had our strike in '87, and I was our player rep, and I had to lead the guys away from the field, and all of a sudden we had our replacement team, the Scabs, come in and they played those 4 games, and the Giants lost every single one of them. So we came back to play. We're 0-4. The reason I say all this is that we were set up to win several Super Bowls. You take the Cowboys in the early '90s, and they were set up to win several Super Bowls. We were that way from 85, 86 on up to 90. We could have won more than a couple had things gone a little bit differently. And I look at one of the strikes we had as one of those causes not to be that dominant. But our '86 team was really the stronger of the two, I believe.
I agree with that.
I have to agree with him. I think that was a dominant team, especially defensively. We were playing them in a game, and they broke Danny White's wrist in the game. I mean, that was just a dominant team. I mean, they were just physical, and the things that Gary said is they practiced that way and they played that way. And when they went on the field, they dominated people because they were extremely physical, and they were true. That's that NFC style, and they forced every team in the NFC. Yeah,
you knew it.
Like that.
You knew what you were going to get when you played one of the NFC East teams. It was going to be rough, rock'em sock'em football, because they had no other way to play.
Yeah. No question, and that's true. And the Giants did start that with Parcells, and then every other team just really copycatted it. In the NFC East, you saw Washington do it, you saw the Giants do it, and then you saw the Cowboys. The Eagles were late to the party.
So Jim, you brought up the Redskins and the Washington football team. Oh my God, I don't even want to go there. But when they started that offensive scheme that they ran with their big offensive line, and that slant counter tray action backside guard tackle pull and all that whole game, that whole thing, we had to come up with ways to defeat that. If you couldn't defeat that play, you couldn't beat the Washington Redskins, because they were going to use that. And then they had variations of that. And we saw those over time. And, I just remember Banks being asked to dive at the pulling guard and tackles inside knee and take out both of them so Gary Reasons could be the hero making the tackle over the top. So we had our outside linebacker just slice down and dive underneath those 2 pulling guards, and we'd kick it over to me to make the tackle. Well, what the Redskins started to do was they would read the tackle around Banks, and they'd go one hole wider. But we were even smarter. We were even smarter than that. We would actually bring our strong safety down and kick it over again to Gary Reasons to allow me to make the tackle. I had it easy, guys. It was fun. All I had to do was run outside and make the play.
Well, Gary, before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit about the Giant defensive line, because, the Giant linebacker crew, like I said, arguably the greatest in history. You can make that argument. But when you had Martin and you had Marshall and you had Bird or Howard, that defensive line was playing basically Jim Bird, basically a 2-gap, right? So they're covering for you guys, letting you guys run back there free for a lot of the things, and they could put pressure on the quarterback, and they made some big tackles. How about the defensive line?
Our defensive linemen were obviously stellar, and they were great. The two gap style of play is an art. It's magic. But really, we were a 1-gap system, to be honest with you, simply because any way the quarterback or ball was open, right or left, it would turn into a 1-gap system. That way, if I'm the left inside linebacker looking at the offense and the ball goes to my right, which is, the offense's left, I become the backside A-gap responsible for on the nose. And, I have to press up in there so that our nose tackle can continue to play down the line of scrimmage. Unless I saw a fast read to the outside, then I could scrape faster to the right. We had to play disciplined football to get into those gaps and take those double teams off of our defensive linemen, because they were responsible for the A gap on the other side. And there's a balance act there. And so when you look at tape and you look at positioning of our linebackers and how we fit on plays, we were pretty damn precise, and we took care of each other, and we had an alliance there to where we all relied on each other, and we didn't have guys who were running rogue except for 56. We didn't have anybody jumping out of things. And Jim, you're going to kick out of this. So back in 1985, the Bears were given credit for creating the 46 defense, right, which is essentially rushing 5 and leaving a zone open on the outside. I tell you, there's no doubt about it in my mind that the New York Football Giants had the earliest creation of the 46 defense, and I'll tell you why. Because number 56 on our team could never get the damn call right. I'd go Roy or Lee, and he was supposed to rush or he's supposed to drop. He said, "Oh, screw it, I'm going to rush." And so we leave the thing open, and we'd rush 5. But guess what? 56 makes the sack, so
right.
It's all right. And so guys were watching tape of our defense, and that's how they created that. Hey, it's okay to leave that little flat weak zone open, and we'll just rush that other player, and we'll get pressure. That's the origination of the 46 defense, and it's all done by Lawrence Taylor screwing up our defense.
That's
Lawrence
crazy.
created a lot of things.
That's a joke. He was really sensational, but he had a few things on his own.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So did Byron ever have to block you, Gary? Before I let you go, I can ask that too. Did Byron ever have to come down and block you?
Byron?
Yes.
No. They wouldn't allow Byron to come inside between the tackles.
I ran in reverse outside.
That's it.
You stayed outside.
Shoot.
Yes.
He knew where his lane was. That's true.
Me and Gary are best friends now. He's still.
That's great. That's great. Hey, Gary, I know you're busy, man. We appreciate you coming in, sharing a little time with us. Great middle linebacker and a lot of memories for Giants fans. And thanks for coming on, Gary.
My pleasure, guys. Enjoy the night. Take care.
Number 55.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir. So there you go, folks. The great Gary Reasons. Byron never came down. I thought Byron said he used to come across and block the middle linebacker.
I told you I ran the reverse one time, and Lawrence Taylor knocked the crap out of me.
That's it.
And boy, 4 or 5 plays later, I ran another reverse. I put the Jets on.
Yes.
Lawrence Taylor said, "Damn, boy, you're fast. I wasn't going to
But
get no more."
that defense was special, and they had special players. A lot of them don't get the credit, and we always hear about it, and they, rightfully so. The Lawrence Taylors, the Banks, the Carsons, but the George Martins, the Gary Reasons, they were tremendous players in there.
Oh man,
the
they
Mark
were.
Collins that we've had on this show and things like they were tremendous players, and they don't always get the credit, but they deserve the credit because that's why the Giants were so successful.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So let's get to our 2 home teams, guys, and before we get on the Thursday night game. So Dallas puts it on Minnesota without Dak, as I predicted, guys. I knew they would because, listen, Minnesota is a good team. And they're not consistent, right? They play good team. Their quarterback has problems in big situations and big nights. And I don't know what it is about Kirk Cousins, but let me tell you something. With or without Dak, with those weapons and the Dallas defense playing the way they are right now, I mean, I just see no reason why Dallas can't make a run in the Super Bowl. No reason at all.
Yeah, I think Dallas is playing with a lot of confidence as well, and their defense is playing great. I mean, if you stop, it's exciting to see them play, and they receivers doing good. The running back, I told you, Zeke made a play at the end of the game last week.
Yeah,
that shows that his true value. He's a great running back. He's in the top 5 in running backs.
Yeah, and I think he was hurt by what happened last year, and everybody's saying that he's declining and things like that, and he's coming back and he is playing. I think what Dallas is doing is they're playing hard, and that's credit to obviously Dan Quinn, and I'm talking about defense, is they're playing hard and they're starting to have confidence in yourself. And a lot of it is confidence in your play. I think offensively, I honestly didn't know how good Cooper was, but I'm finding out quickly of a receiver. I thought he was a good receiver, but he is transitioning to a great receiver. CeeDee Lamb is starting to play. And this Cedric Wilson, Gallup was healthy last week. They can't even get him on the field because Cedric Wilson keeps making plays. I mean, they're as long as they said they got a little bit, Tyron Smith is supposedly going to play this week. But if they can stay healthy, they got a chance to make a run. There's still some teams that are tough in the NFC West with the Cardinals and obviously the Rams over there. And then you still got Tampa Bay, and you never know that somebody's going to start to emerge in the NFC East. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah. I think they've already emerged, right, Byron?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
it's fun to have depth, especially at the wide receiver, man.
Yes.
It's fun to see these guys make plays and run the long touchdown. It's just exciting football to watch the Cowboys and their style of offense that they're playing.
And one thing I did say I noticed about them, and this was in preseason, they weren't extending Cooper. They weren't extending him. They gave him days off, and everybody's saying, well, that's not what we pay him for. But he looks fresh now. And he gave those younger, the Cedric Wilsons, the CeeDee Lambs, opportunity to mature and get better. And that's the thing to notice.
Well, Jim, let's not forget either that offensive line is almost all the way back, and they can make any receivers and quarterbacks look good and running backs. I mean, they got a great offensive line.
Yes, they do.
So Byron, I don't want to talk about it, but we got to talk about it, right? I mean, so the New York Giants, same old Giants, almost win. They're undisciplined. They too many penalties. That's it. That's all I got to say, Byron. I don't know what to say. I mean, listen, they had the Chiefs right where they wanted them, like they had a few other teams, and it's just there's one thing after another. I mean, it's the same thing. How can you keep doing the same thing, Byron? What's going on over there?
It's just, I hate to point fingers, but they got to find ways to win. 20-17, they really had the Chiefs beat. I mean, they just gave the game away to them, and I just think too the coaches need to call timeouts at the right time. They need to make some plays. I mean, you need to get in some players' face. I mean, they make the same stupid mistakes. It's just not Giants football. We just had Gary Reason on here talking about Giants football. Giants football is hard-hitting football. You take the gloves and you kicking butts. And for some reason, we don't lost that. I don't know if the new coaches or what, but we got to do something. We need a drastic change, and we need a shot in the arm just to get the Giants back up to par, because they lost. They could easily be 5-2.
4-3,
yeah, 4-4, whatever. But being 2-5 is it's 2-6 is not good. It's not good.
I mean, go ahead.
No, I was going to say what I noticed about them is that this comment struck me, was kind of interesting. Joe Judge said that every game they've had problems with their communication with their headphones. And that bothered me because excuses build bridges to nowhere. They should have had that resolved in the first game. If you're the head coach, I'm going to get that resolved. I can't have communication problems. And like you said, you guys expressed, they had 10 penalties. And some of them were unforced penalties. I mean, jumping off sides in a crucial situation. I mean, that's just discipline and understanding and staying focused. They have talent. Don't ever understand. They do have talent, and they were headed in the right direction. They just got to make sure they take care of the little things.
Yeah, and you need your timeouts in the second half of the game. You don't use all your times. Just little stuff like that, fundamental stuff that you know better. You don't use your timeouts. If you got a headset problem or communication problem, hey, get somebody over there and fix that immediately. Don't let that be one of the reasons why you lose a game.
Not 4 or 5 games. No, hell no. And a lot of people compare Joe Judge's style to that of Bill Parcells, your old coach, Byron. Right? He's loud. He's strict. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. But what people didn't realize about Bill Parcells, and every guest, Jim and Byron, I've ever talked to that has been a former Giant, he knew his players. He knew what buttons to push. He knew something about their families. He was very smart. In a way, he was disciplined, yeah, hard, yeah, and would play you and would say he'd cut you in a minute. But he still, the Giants players respected him because he knew about their families. He knew what buttons to push, who to bother, and who not to bother. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing Gary Reason said tonight. He knew you personally. The first time I met Bill Parcells, he asked me, "How is Columbus and Lorraine?" My parents' name. And man, that right there, just like, what? He know my parents' name? It just little stuff like that made the difference between the relationship that you build with your players and the relationship and the results that you get out of a player on the football field.
Yeah. And he would, when he was the Giants coach, he'd go to a diner where my dad had coffee every morning, and they drink coffee together. That was Bill. So you're right. And that was one of his better things that he did. He understood his players and asked the personal things and let them know, I know things that are going on in your personal life, and about, just like you said, and about the family. I don't know if Joe's there yet. If he can get there, he'll have more success. I think he's a good coach. I think he's done some good things. He just got, like you guys said, they got to win. They got to win some games because they do have talent.
Well,
they on that list of the team who have lost the most games in the last 3 years, and that's not a good list to be on.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. So Dallas is going to go up. They're going to play the Broncos next. They
play here in Dallas.
Right. Yeah. Okay. They're playing in Dallas. So the Broncos are coming down to see you. Dak playing. Do you guys have you heard anything about Dak being out?
He's gonna play. He's definitely gonna play.
They said he's ready today. They said he's out there practicing.
Yeah. So I would say Dallas should be favored. Any way that the Broncos win this, Jim, against Dallas?
If Dallas doesn't take them, just like what happened with Cincinnati and the Jets, if they don't take the game seriously, then they're going to have some issues. I think they are going to take it seriously, but that's how Denver can win if they're not focused and they sleepwalk through the game.
The one thing that I love about Dallas, when they play at home, seem like they're excited about playing. So I'm thinking they becoming a home game situation. They seem like they play exciting football, and now they look like they'll probably score 40-some points. So if Denver can't score 38 points or so, they ain't no way they can beat Dallas.
Yeah.
Giants. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
All I was just real quick going to say is that the fans have been more, and I've been to every game, home game, and the fans have been in it more. And it's
more than they've been. Well, I think
the COVID have helped too. They really missed out last year, and I think here in Dallas, it seems like it's just so much excitement. Even when you go, driving up and down these streets, and you got everybody got a Cowboy sticker on their car and stuff, and they, I got my Giant sticker on, and they blowing me off the road.
Yes. So Byron and Jim, Giants go to play the Raiders. Raiders are playing really well. They're first place in their division. Do the Giants even have a chance, guys?
Yes.
I think they do. I think with Henry Buzz having what happened to him this week, having that DUI, DWI, and killing someone on this highway, that's two times in 3 weeks that they had some type of drastic change, news that didn't happen with the Raiders. So the Giants can, if they just stay focused and don't make these stupid mistakes. But the Raiders, they have a way of winning though. They have a good coach, and that coach is very even-headed, and seems like the players are excited about playing football for him. So it's gonna be a good game, a good test for the Giants.
Okay, and we got tomorrow night as we close out the show here. We got the hot New York Jets. Break them up. going against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are they're having their problems. What do you think, guys? Who's you pick first, Byron? Do you like the Jets or the Colts? The Jets are getting 10.5 points.
I'm going with Carson Wentz tomorrow. He need a game real bad.
And Jim, what do you think?
Gangrene.
I'm glad we're going. Hey, we need to start keeping stats to see who's going to win more games.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We do have to start doing that, and I'll make sure I get one of our many editors and producers on that for you guys right away. So Byron definitely we know has got the Colts. Jim's got the Jets. Folks, thanks for joining us today. Again, great Gary Reason's joined us, and another great job by the two NFL stars covering the NFL as always. So, folks, have a great day. We'll see you next Wednesday on J&B. Talk shop.
Backfield in motion. I'm gonna have to penalize you.